All right. Good morning, Alex.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks
Good.
for sticking with me while I figure out technology here.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us today. As I said on our phone call and earlier, that I really wanted to just talk with you in general about what mental health looks like right now and just some of the issues that people are facing that are unique right now to the situation that we're all in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So,
what are some of the unique things that people are
yeah,
facing?
it's interesting. There's a lot going on. It's changing every day, but our responses and reactions right now um, are very similar to what everybody is kind of feeling. So I think part of it is normalizing some of those things that are coming up for us. A lot of us are having some fears and anxiety and worries and stress coming up about our own health, about people that we care about's health that may be at a higher risk. We know there's anxieties around our work and financial issues, especially in certain industries that are, at a higher risk of shutting down or not being able to provide work right now. And there's even those anxieties around being able to get some of those basic needs, whether it's toilet paper or childcare or whatever it may look like. So there's a lot of anxieties around that I think are kind of unique to what's going on. We also know there's just frustration about the uncertainty that's happening right now of, when will this end? Will it end? What is it going to look like? Along with that is also a lot of us are feeling lonely. Even if you're in a house full of people, we aren't being able to connect like we used to with either our communities or our workplace or, different activities we were part of. We even are seeing there be anger coming out with a lot of individuals because we're angry at how other people are handling this or doing things or the way it's coming about. And so a lot of different things are coming up for us. And I think part of this is recognizing a lot of that's normal for what is happening, for what a huge change we've had. With that said, though, if we're noticing those things coming up and it's really interfering with our ability to function, we're not able to do our normal day-to-day, whether that's showing up in front of a computer or parenting or whatever it looks like. That's where we may have concerns something bigger may be going on. It may be a bigger mental health issue. But in general, mental health is absolutely being affected right now.
Yeah, I saw an article the other day talking about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and just the calls that are coming in. And I could be misquoting this, so don't quote me, but I think around 800% increase
Oh,
that we're seeing in
wow.
calls. I don't know if you have seen that
I
or
haven't
heard
seen
about
that.
that.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's not, I mean, that's a huge number, but it's not shocking for how isolated we are right now and such a huge change. So even if you had no mental health issues prior to this, could absolutely impact your mental health. And then for those who have struggled with it, this is a big change as well. So I think those crisis lines, providers, and just the resources that we have are going to be kind of inundated right now. If not, and I even think of, when we start coming out of this, how that's going to change also. There's going to be other anxieties and worries that are going to come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the isolation and the loneliness is definitely real
Yeah.
for a lot of people. What about people even that have previous issues with mental health or a more severe diagnosis and they're not able to get the same kind of care right now?
It's a range, and I can't speak to everyone, obviously, but we're actually seeing in some cases people are actually getting or kind of adhering more to treatment because we're able to do it from their own homes. So we're not seeing people cancel as much. People are showing up. People are feeling more comfortable. And most providers are being able to provide telehealth now. So even though it looks different, it hasn't been all negative by any means. We've been able to kind of work with it and see people be able to shift. And actually, some people are are enjoying this kind of support, because they don't have to leave their homes, or they don't have to, they can kind of do it in their own way. So I think that hasn't been terrible. I don't know what that's going to look like going back. I think, mental health may look a little bit different in the providing, where we may see more of this telehealth opportunity, which we were going towards anyways. I think this just kind of escalated it, but there is benefit to providing both in person and tele. So I think that's kind of one positive that's come out of it, is this has made us be able to do this at a quicker pace than we were supposed to, but it's allowing people to get treatment that may not have sought treatment otherwise.
Yeah, I really agree with you there about this is a time where people can seek treatment that might not have otherwise. I know, people that are remote that don't have access, but I can speak into that a little bit just personally, that I'm going all the time and so busy. And I know that I've been needing to be in therapy for a little while. We all need that kind of maintenance, or need to do some work. And this has been an opportunity for me to do that when I didn't normally have the time to, because you factor in, oh, I've got to drive there, I have to drive back. And now I can just pop on a phone once a week or in front of Zoom. And this is the first time in a long time I've needed to do that. So
Yeah,
there's some people out there like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been recommending, is even if you feel like your mental health is totally fine right now, it's a great opportunity to either reach out to your EAPs, which is your employee assistance program, through your work or your insurance, and just call your healthcare providers and just see what options there are, what's out there, because it is looking different. And in some instances, it may be a little bit harder, but in others, especially around mental health, it can be a benefit right now.
Right. So what do you think are some warning signs? Say I've got a friend that's struggling. What are some things that I need to be really concerned about?
So, when we talk about concerning mental health issues, there's kind of two factors that we want to always look out for. And it's when their day-to-day functioning is being really impacted, and or their relationships or their ability to relate to others has been altered. So, we can take even, what we were just talking about with those responses and reactions, where we're lonely, we're upset, we're anxious, we're fearful, whatever it may be. And those are normal. But if that's really impacting my ability to show up to my computer and do work or parent my kid, if that is having a big impact there, that's where I think we be a little bit more mindful that something bigger could be going on. So I think that's kind of what we look out for. And that it's hard in this time, right? Because we aren't able to see our friends or family members face to face. But that's where there's such an importance that we stay connected, whether it's through FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it looks like for each individual. But staying connected, and if you're noticing people are withdrawing, or when you talk to them and they're saying, yeah, I haven't been outside, or I haven't talked to anybody, or I'm really struggling to even show up to my computer, those kinds of things are where we want to check in more first. And then if we have concern that their mental health is having a big impact, really try to get them linked up with somebody to talk to a little bit more.
Yeah. And I can imagine, it's really hard because a lot of people are struggling right now. A lot of people don't want to do things. I know I'm struggling right now, homeschooling and also working. And there were a couple of days last week where I said, you know what, we're not doing school today, which normally might be warning signs. I'm kind of, it is impacting my daily life. But like you said, it's going a little deeper, calling, really being intentional about checking in on people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, one of our doctors, Dr. Amy Lopez, that's what she says a lot, is like, our expectations are super low right now. Like,
okay. Like that.
If we're not homeschooling, we're fine. If our kids are on more screen time, that is fine. Like, we are okay with these changes and the shifts, and work is going to look different. Yeah, you're not going to be at 100% because you are homeschooling and you are dealing with all these other things. But if you're still able to even give a little bit, or provide what you can, but those big kind of shifts where we see a change in the way that they're showing up or communicating, or even just being able to get out of bed, those kinds of things is a little bit more concerning than these shifts in routine and that which we're all going through.
Okay, so it'd be more of just like a big shift.
Yeah.
When even though they've been struggling, because we're all struggling, then there's
Right.
just that big shift. I like what you said, hard time just getting out of bed in the morning or not
Yeah.
wanting to walk outside.
Yeah. And I think it's we can check in on each other. We also want to check in on ourselves. I think it's helpful to even just rate your stress or your mental health on a day-to-day basis. Like today I'm a 3 and yesterday I was a 4, kind of do a rating each, because it's going to change. We get new information every day. And so we're kind of in these ups and downs, and that's completely normal. But if you're noticing I'm at a 5 constantly and I'm, not handling it well, and I'm not being able to take care of myself or others, then yeah, those are times we want to say, what are my warning signs and triggers? And maybe I should talk to somebody about this because I'm not being able to cope the way that I would like to.
Tell me a little more about that, the rating scale for those of us that aren't familiar with that in mental health.
So yeah, you can, this is just a very basic, but on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being very low and 5 being very high, where is your stress level today? So, for a lot of us, we're kind of in that 3 range, probably most of the time, but certain days we kind of go up a little bit and certain days we go down. And it's not anything scientific by any means, but it's just a way we can gauge where we're at or how we are feeling, and then take steps to actually address it, and do, some tips and take some tools to be able to manage our stress levels or our anxiety levels.
I like that. And is that something we can also do with our loved ones, our neighbors, our kids even?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I think the important thing, because we're getting so much negative information and overwhelming information, it's important to say, okay, I'm feeling bad or I'm feeling poor. So what can I do about it? Instead of us just saying, I'm going to now, watch the news for 4 hours and continue this stressful thing. So I think it's helpful to then look at, okay, what can I really work on to actually address it? Sorry.
I like that. What can I actually do? What can I actually work on? Because that's something I tell myself, it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
But it's not okay to not do anything about it. Right. Eventually when you can, or reach out or ask for help.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't get out of bed, but you can help, ask somebody to help you. So some things that we can do. What are some things we can do?
Yeah. So I think I kind of touched on this a little bit, but the biggest thing is really just limiting our exposure to information. So we're hearing that a lot, like, okay, but then we're getting bombarded with information. So we have to really be in control of that, I'm not going to be, checking my news feed constantly or having the news in the background while I'm cooking. Like, really be mindful of shutting it off, maybe saying I'm going to spend 15 minutes checking in, and then the rest of the day, go about kind of my normal routine. So really being mindful of how you limit your exposure and where you're getting your information. I think it's one of the best things we can do. It's also helpful to maintain some bit of routine. I know that's a joke for a lot of people who have kids or family members that are trying to by day to day. And that doesn't mean from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. we're doing a routine, but have some routine. I get up 15 minutes before the kids do to have my cup of coffee, or a walk during lunch every day, or I have a phone call with a best friend every night. So some routine to give us some control can be helpful. A few other things that I think are helpful, having a breathing or grounding exercise when we feel really overwhelmed is really helpful. There's tons on YouTube that you can look at and follow, as well as like the Calm app or Headspace. They do those things. But our breath is actually one that's really easy to use anytime, and we can teach others to do this as well. But what we're able to do is use our breath and take a deep inhale through our mouth and a slow exhale through our nose. And Dr. Scott Seifer's at the center, he always gives, so we have control over it. He always talks about it as when you're breathing in the best smelling food you've ever smelled in your life. So really big, deep inhale. And then when you breathe out as though you're blowing on hot soup. So if you can kind of
Ooh.
remember that, it gives you this like calm way to control our breath. So that's something that we can utilize anytime if we're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. We can take that big inhale and then that slow exhale.
I like that. I like what you said about smelling something
Yeah,
delicious.
yeah. It gives us a little bit of because when we think of, oh, I need to breathe, tend to take these short breaths or these huge exhales. And this is a controlled way that is really manageable.
Yeah, I was doing deep breathing a few weeks ago with my therapist on the phone, and I told him, I said, I don't like doing deep breathing. I know I've done it with clients, and I know it's something that we're supposed to talk about, but I have a problem because I feel really lightheaded when I do it.
Oh,
And I learned
yeah.
I was doing it wrong because I was breathing in too quickly. So I was breathing in so much air that I felt,
Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of increased my anxiety because I couldn't
Yeah.
continue breathing in longer than a few seconds. So, like you said, that slow breathing in, if you are like I am and did not realize that,
Right,
slow
right.
breathing in and slow
Yeah.
controlled breathing out is important. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's amazing what it can do for you. It's very calming, just the air
Yes.
that we breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are, a few things. We also need to shift I think our focus from what we can control away from what we cannot control.
Yes.
Really cool little graphic out there. It has a little fox on it. And it's like these circles as a circle of what you cannot control and then in it what you can. And what you can is like, how much toilet paper is the store going to have? Or what is my neighbor doing around social distancing? And those are the things we're getting hung up on. But we have no control over that. So we need to shift our focus to, what is my own positive attitude, or how am I following guidelines? So kind of just thinking of what are the things I can control, and try our best to let go of those things that we can't.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us we have extra time to be on social media a lot more, which you
Yeah.
said, being careful about where we are. I was thinking when you said there's helpful things online. I mean, first we have the Headspace and the Calm app, which you mentioned, which are
Yeah.
awesome if we still want
Yeah.
to be on our phones. But just thinking about like a Pinterest or somewhere where we can do things that are healthy for our brains and find helpful tools.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. And then we're seeing people be really, really great. And I think things they're doing, there's a lot of support people are providing. They're taking this free time and, either writing letters to nursing homes or making masks or, doing fun art stuff on their sidewalks. So thinking of ways that we can help others during this time, we know that helps us get through tough times as well. So thinking of something you care about or that you're passionate about and trying to utilize that or work on that, I think is helpful.
Right. I'm thinking about an awesome local nonprofit that I love called Project Helping. And
Yeah, yes.
it was created, on the fact that when we do things for others, it improves our mental health and our well-being.
Right.
But right now, I know it's hard to go out and do things for people. So you mentioned a couple of things: making masks, writing letters. Can you think of some other that you think would be helpful?
People are doing like cooking where they feel comfortable. Cooking for people who maybe aren't able to, or grocery shopping for people if they're not able to. Trying to think. I mean, kids are getting creative with, putting hearts in the windows or teddy bears, and people will go on a teddy bear scavenger hunt. The howling at night that a lot of people are doing at 8 o'clock in support of our healthcare workers. So I think just thinking of the little things, or if you're creative, I know some people have been making those fleece blankets that are super easy, just like knot the ends and give those to nursing homes. But I think if you think of some of the art projects or creative things you like to do and say, where would this benefit or could this benefit somebody?
Yeah. I was just looking at our chat here and I saw it. Susie said we call that cookie and candles. I love that. I've received that from her before, so she's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. Kathy says initially seeking out joy every day. Yeah. So finding
Yeah.
ways to be grateful, thankful, to seek joy.
Yeah. And yeah, we're, that's something when we were talking about kind of rate your stress level. It's also a really helpful thing is at the end of the day or at the beginning of your day, start with, or end with positive affirmations or things that brought you joy in the day or things that you felt good about yourself. Those little kind of check-ins and being mindful of them can go a long way and really either set the tone for the day or help release the stresses of what our day was as well, or have us end up with kind of some positive things.
Right. So we've talked a lot about things that we can kind of control or things we can do or limiting negative media. What about the people out there that have more severe mental health diagnosis that need that extra support? I know you said we have teletherapy. So that really may have already answered my question, but can you speak a little more into that?
I think, if you have mental health issues and regardless if you feel like I'm doing better during this time or I'm doing worse, really sticking with your treatment plan that you were doing before. Obviously it's shifted a little, but not getting off or changing things necessarily unless you have doctor recommendations around that, but really trying to keep that routine as fluid as possible. And then just, again, I think checking in of where you're going to best know your warning signs, your triggers, some things that may be having an impact, and really tuning into those and then discussing those with your providers as well. I think we also need to look at our, I call them protective factors, which really is just thinking of safety nets for all of us around our mental health. So regardless if you have severe mental health issues or not, we have these safety nets that really support us during hard times. And there's a lot of different ones, but a few just to kind of, I think, tune into. One is the connectedness to others. So if you are struggling with your mental health issue, who are a few people you can call and talk to if they're tough, or just that will help listen. We talk about that, and I this as well. Like, we talk about just how community plays a huge role in our health, and just having people to talk to. And so whether it's 2 or 6 people, doesn't matter, but having people you can count on to talk to, that can go a really long way. Also, just knowing those professional numbers, whether it's Colorado Crisis or your provider's number, having those in your phone. So if something does come up, you can reach out when and if you need that. And then just thinking of your community in general, whether you have cultural connections, spiritual connections, making sure you're staying connected with that as well to the best ability that you can, because those really are our safety nets right now. And then the last one I'll kind of touch on, which I think we're realizing we need to tune in a little bit more to, is our resiliency. So we have all gone through some really tough stuff, whether it's a really tough divorce or losing a loved one in our lives that meant a lot to us. We have gone through really hard times. Yes, it has not been COVID. This is different. This is, a totally different thing, but we have gone through adversities and challenges, and we can take those skills, those positive coping strategies, those things that we did in those past times and apply them now to get through hard times. So really thinking back of, what did I do when I had that rough patch or when I was really going through a hard time? What was helpful? What was useful? And taking some of those skills and applying them now. We're really finding that to be a benefit, and that builds on our resiliency moving forward as well.
Right. Yeah, I think this time is so different, even when you're struggling with something else that might not have been so hard. We talked a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Ray Mitch about just grieving during the time of COVID. And some people are finding, hey, why am I having such a hard time with this? I've never really struggled with this issue or that before. Why is this so different? And I think you're right. You're taking out community, or just the uncertainty is maybe making everything just feel bigger than it is. So that's why I think it'd be helpful for people, yes, you may not have, actually a diagnosis of an anxiety disorder or depression, but you can still struggle and you can still use those resiliency tools and skills that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's going to look a little different, but it's something to think about. So And then I think it's also helpful to think of, I mean, we're not planning, what the summer is going to look like or anything, but have something to look forward to, whether it's, in a few months, I may be able to see my parents, maybe with a mask on, but I'm able to see them in person. I'm going to be able to drive up to the mountains or, to Rocky Mountain National Park and drive through it, or, make some kind of fun plan to look forward to. This isn't going to be forever. We're not going to be quarantined to our homes forever. Yes, things are going to be different, but we are going to be able to, and we're seeing it in the world elsewhere, things are changing. And so having something to look forward to can be helpful for some positive in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I like looking at this in a positive light, trying to think of some things that maybe that have come out of this or we're experiencing now that maybe are positives. Can you speak into that a little bit? I know we touched on a little bit at the beginning, just being home and
so we're able, I mean, I think a lot of us are noticing a few things, and you can go both ways. Like, you're home with your family. We're seeing a lot more family time, which for some of us are like, okay, I'm over it. I need the break. Seeing some cool things. I had a gentleman the other day say that his son is teaching him how to longboard. And I'm sure if we were not, that would not be something they would be doing. So we're having, these different connections, but we're slowing down. So we're able to check in. I know I've been having weekly Zoom calls with my girlfriends from college that I only talked to when there was like a wedding every 3 years. And now we're talking on a weekly basis. And so we're seeing, actually these connections that haven't happened for a while starting to kind of piece back together, which is kind of cool. We're also seeing people get really creative in what they're doing. I had a woman say that she does these, they call it secret chef. So with a group of her, I don't know if it's her neighbors or friends, but they, one of them is the secret chef of the week, and they cook a meal for everybody, drop it off at their front door, and then they all sit on Zoom and eat it together and try to guess who the cook was.
I love that. I want to do that.
I know. I thought it was really, so we're seeing this, like, and again, that's not something we would do outside of this, right? That's not something that would have happened elsewhere. So community is looking different, but it's kind of cool in that sense. I think we're seeing also some of the news articles of how this is having an impact on our environment. Like, smog is down, jellyfish are in the Venice Canal, and like crazy, wildlife is flourishing. And so it's kind of hit a little reset on our environment as well, which I think for some people is really something they've been wanting or, are passionate about, and has been able to give us a little bit of a breather there. So there are some benefits. I think it's hard to find those sometimes, but just thinking of what are some things I've done in this time that I wouldn't have done if I wasn't given this opportunity to slow down. So, and if we can pick those out, we kind of can help at least boost a little bit of what the negative is around us in this.
Right. And I think some people are experiencing they're finding themselves doing things or gaining things because of the time, but maybe you're feeling a little guilty about talking about that because so many people are suffering or they've lost loved ones to COVID-19 or lost their jobs. So maybe they're feeling guilty about saying, hey, I'm actually, maybe enjoying a part of this or getting something back.
Yeah. And I think that's actually another important piece is especially when we think about like colleagues or people maybe not as close as like a best friend or a family member, but having those open conversations can be helpful. I saw somewhere in an article where a boss was checking in on an employee and they're like, how are you doing? And the employee was like, I'm fine. And the boss was like, no, you're not. None of us are fine. Like, tell me how you're really doing. And then that just like opened up a conversation of like, yeah, we're all kind of having our own struggles in a way and letting us, instead of just kind of putting on this mask of everything's okay, or everything's fine, get it out there, have us talk about, some of the struggles and then support each other with that moving forward. And even I think to your point, what you were saying is yeah, like maybe I lost my job, but I'm actually enjoying this extra time that I'm able to be with my kids. Or, and just having, however you're feeling, some open dialogue with people and allowing people to talk about their experiences, because everybody's is unique, but at the same time, there's some similarity with all of ours as well.
Yeah, I like what you said about allowing people to share what they're feeling and experiencing, whether it's on this side of the spectrum or that side,
Yeah,
instead of shutting us down or shutting people down or shaming them either way. Because
exactly.
I know there's been a lot that I've actually enjoyed about this time. It's slowed me down. It's allowed me to be home with my kids a lot
Mhm.
more, because usually I'm running, from meeting to meeting. But I don't always feel okay saying that because I have so many friends that are struggling. And
Yeah,
so I want to, but yeah, just allowing people on either side of it, and
yeah,
somewhere in between, just to talk about what they're really going through.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we aren't in the same situation, but when we're able to, just be able to listen to that, or kind of get that off our chest, it can be really helpful.
hmm So, for those of you watching right now, if you have any questions for Alex, you just put it in the chat box, and let us know. Yeah, what you're thinking, what your reactions are. I'm. She's brilliant. She can answer just about anything. So keep those questions coming. While we're waiting for that, just to make sure nobody has any questions, are there any kind of final thoughts? Anything I haven't asked you that you wanted to share?
I'm trying to think, I think something that's come up a lot, is just like we've talked about our own mental health and that, but thinking of how we can support our kids during this
Oh,
a little bit. And I think there's a lot of things that come up, but just a few things that I call them the 4 R's, which can be helpful. And that's just role model, reassurance, routine, and regulation. And just briefly, I won't go into too much detail, but role modeling, I think, is the best thing we can do for our kids right now. How we are dealing with this, how we are limiting our own exposure to media, or how we are doing our own self-care habits of getting out and going on a walk, or doing in our project that's fun for us. That is what we're showing for our kids to be doing as well. So just kind of remembering that the more positive and more kind of in tune we are, the better that's going to be for our kids as well. With that said, we're all going to have really bad days. We're going to have these days where things just go off, and that's fine. And we're going to have numerous days of that, but
yeah.
able to talk about those days. Like yesterday was a tough day for me, not my best self, but I know I didn't handle things the way I wanted to. If I could redo it, this is what I would have liked to do. And I'm going to have bad days, and you are too. So just having conversations about those bad days as well. So role modeling, I think, is one of the things we do have to really think about in this time. Reassurance, just for kids who are anxious or overwhelmed by this, just letting them know that, it is the adult's job in their life to ensure their safety, and they're doing the best that they can. And that's really what we're trying to do, is trying to keep everybody safe, whether it's our grandparents or our kids. We're doing everything that we can. So, we can't promise them that everything in the world is going to work out perfectly, but that we're trying our best. And then routine, again, I know we're not 7 a.m., 7 p.m. doing stuff, but have our kids pick a routine that they want to do. Maybe you have a teenager who's like, I have to talk to my best friend 3 times a day to stay sane right now. Let them do that, and have them guide that. Or maybe you have a toddler who needs to get out and run. So at noon, you guys like go outside and run around. So just picking some routine that's helpful for both of you, or for the kid to be able to have that control. And then regulation, our last one, is just helping manage reactions to whatever stresses are coming up. So we want to, validate their feelings. I can't even imagine being a teenager right now. So it's overwhelming, it's frustrating, it brings up anger. I'm sure there's a lot going on, and not saying, oh, well, your grandparents had it worse, or whatever, those are helpful in the moment. Just saying, I know this may be the worst time that you've ever felt, or I know you're really overwhelmed right now. And then trying to help them engage in activities to help self-regulate some of those things coming up. So whether that's exercise, deep breathing, routines, whatever that is, but trying to help them with that, whatever that emotion is, and deal with that.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up routines because we're seeing a lot from media and social media of everybody saying, give yourself grace, just give
Yeah,
yourself some permission to stay in your pajamas all day and do all of that, which I think is great for the first few days. But you're right. Having a routine is very helpful. Now, I have a very loose routine. I've written it up and I don't have times beside it because if we don't get to it at a certain time, it gives me, it kind of adds a
yeah,
little extra stress, but kind of going through motions and having something, at least one routine a day, I think is really helpful, not just for kids, but for
yeah,
adults, especially if you do struggle with a mental health issue. Like I said, I
right.
have anxiety, so it's important for me to kind of have
Yeah,
something that's regular in a way. Otherwise, I'll
yeah,
just sit in my pajamas all day and not want to get out of bed.
yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, again, we think of our low, like have expectations, but set them low.
Set them low.
Have goals, but set them low. So yeah, maybe it's like what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to at least put on some makeup every day, even though most days I don't see people, but it does, or like you said, get out of my pajamas.
Mhm.
Because if I stay in them, I'm like, oh, it's 3 o'clock and I'm in the same clothes that I was, and it does have an impact on how I feel and my mental health. So they don't have to be big at getting dressed, and whether it's putting a clean pair of sweatpants or not, but that's those little things and little goals go a long way for our mental health.
Right. I like that. A clean pair of sweatpants.
Yeah.
I have my daytime yoga pants and then my
Yes,
nighttime pants.
exactly.
But
Yes.
sometimes I'll put on shoes. I
Yeah.
have like indoor tennis shoes and it just makes me feel dressed. Like I
Yeah.
can concentrate, but I don't know
Yes,
if that's helpful for other
exactly.
people. But if I stay
No,
in
I
my
think
house
that's,
shoes all day, nothing's going to
yeah.
happen.
No, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I was going to, I don't know if I can, let me try something really quick. This was, I'm sharing my screen. I don't know if it works on the,
Ooh, yeah, I see it.
um, but this was something that a lot of people have said have been really helpful. This I can control and I cannot control. I don't know if you can see that.
I do. I like the fox.
Yeah, so that's, I think, a graphic that has been helpful for some people. And then the one on the other side is a lot of what we talked about, but just connecting and self-care. We didn't talk way too much about that, but that's a huge piece of this as well. And just, share how you've dealt with things in the past and let kids talk and feel safe. All of those things we just touched on.
Yeah. What I love about these is it's good for everybody, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't really have any more serious struggles, if we want to group it like that. If you have
Yeah.
a severe mental health diagnosis or a formal mental health diagnosis, and even for children, this is for everyone. Now,
Yeah.
self-care, what would be different about self-care than what we've already talked about?
So it's just thinking of habits, healthy habits that you all have um, to manage daily stress. So it doesn't have to necessarily be around mental health issues, but what research actually shows is when we engage in any little bit of self-care, it actually makes us more productive, even during stressful times. So self-care is usually the first thing to go out the window when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, when things get tough, because we're just thinking, I don't have time for this, or I can't do this. But we actually see the opposite. When we have a good balance, we're able to manage those other things a lot better. So self-care ranges, and I talk about it in a lot of different categories or a lot of different ways, but it's really just the intentional action to take care of yourself. I break it up into 6 categories. There's physical self-care, psychological, emotional, spiritual, relationship, and professional or workplace. A lot of things can overflow into that. So if you think about going on a walk with your kid, that could be physical, that can be relationship, that could be spiritual, it could be psychological. So they can flow into each other, but just recognizing, what am I doing to take care of myself that I enjoy doing too? It shouldn't be a chore. It should be something that you like to do. So for some, it's reading a book, or for some, it's attending church virtually every Sunday, but really thinking of what are things that I enjoy that really can take care of my body, mind, spirit, whatever it may be, and really engage in that during this time.
Yeah, what I love about all this and the things we were talking about earlier is there really is so much that we can do ourselves to
Mhm.
manage our own mental and emotional health and to be well. A lot of
Yeah,
people might think, oh, I need a therapist. I need to spend a lot of money on therapy, which yes, that's a great thing. If you need a therapist, you should talk with somebody, absolutely. But there are so many things we can do, like you said, the self-care, nutrition, getting enough sleep, exercise, limiting social media. It's just telling me that there are a lot of things that we can actually control and things that we can do. And I think it's really empowering.
it is. Yeah, and I think when we're overwhelmed, that's hard to remember, but it's so important because, yeah, like you said, we can do a lot. And again, if you're still overwhelmed, if things are still really tough, that's when you definitely want to seek out more help. Um, but it's pretty cool to see how creative and cool of things people are doing for themselves and to manage this time. Um, so I think it's just important to tune into yourself and what works for you.
Right. And yeah, again, I'll put in the comments and on the description the number for the National Lifeline, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline,
Yeah,
because you can also call that, not even if you're actively suicidal, but if you need, you're just in a dark place and you need to talk to somebody. And if you need resources, they're always there, which is what I love about that. Are there any other resources that
absolutely.
you would recommend right now for people that are really
Yeah,
struggling?
I'm gonna, I'm gonna share my screen again.
You.
Oh, oops, sorry. So most of us know kind of obviously the CDC and World Health Organization. This document, this NAMI document, I think is one of the best ones that's been put together. NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They put together this really helpful document that ranges from I lost somebody to COVID, I need resources, to I'm in my house all by myself, I need somebody to just talk to, not necessarily professionally, but I need to connect with community. And there's different apps you can connect to I just lost my job and I need help navigating that whole system. So really, really great document. I think that helps with a range of issues that people are dealing with right now. SAMHSA also has a helpful document on this as well. And we can post these if you want to or have access to them. Here's a couple others. The University of Colorado, as well as the University of Denver, have kind of made a hub for information. So there's tons of information on both of these, whether it's like 500 activities to do with a kid, or University of Denver does a dance party, I think every morning at 10 a.m. Some cool little options for those of you who have shifted from being in a work environment to working remotely. The Center for Workplace Mental Health has some tips and tools on how to manage that as well. And then lastly, these are just some helpful resources around kids. The first one talks about, how do I talk to my 5-year-old about this versus a 15-year-old? PBS has a ton of information and activities for kids. And then the National Child Traumatic Stress Network has done a really great job of putting together information just strictly around COVID.
That is some awesome information. Yeah, I will get that from you
Yeah.
and share that. We'll get it on our website and I'll try and share it in the links as well
Okay, perfect.
for anybody that needs that. So if you can't find it on our site in a few days, you can just email me, Kimberly@myquietcave.org, and I will send that to you. I'll get that from you, Alex.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are some awesome resources.
great.
And and also for people that, again, if you're supporting someone or if you think a friend might be just extra struggling right now, that's what I keep saying, extra struggling, you can send those resources over as well.
Yeah. And I
And
think if you're really concerned about somebody, and it's definitely harder in this time, but instead of just saying, call Colorado or call the National Suicide Lifeline or call your EAP or call your provider, saying, hey, do you want to call them together? I'll be on the phone with you. Or do you want me to call and find out a little bit more information for you? So being part of that process can go a long way. And with technology, we can do three-way calls, we can do different options there. But if we're really worried and we really want somebody to seek help, we do know that if we can be part of that process, also give choice in some of it as well, of who would you rather call, or, you know, would you rather call the National Lifeline or your provider, and having them make those decisions and being part of that. Really, those small things can go a long way.
Absolutely. I like that. Giving them a choice in that, say, would you rather do this or this? Because you're still saying, I want you to seek help. You need to do this.
Yeah.
And then actually doing it with them instead of just sending them an email is really helpful.
Right.
I think of, like I told you earlier, I have a friend that's about to have a baby any minute now. She's in labor.
Yeah.
And a lot of people tell her, oh, let us know if you need anything. Let us know.
Right.
And that's not always helpful because we're probably not going to let you know anything.
Right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
with this, hey, I'm here to help. How can I help you? Let's call it together. Let's Zoom them together, whatever you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think you mentioned, and that's a good point, is asking what people would like, what would be helpful. Would it be helpful for me to call you every day at 3 o'clock and check in? Or would it be helpful for me to make you dinner and drop it off your front porch, you know, a couple times a week? So, you know, yeah, like, let us know if you need help is one thing. Talking about what they would need, and even if they're like, I don't know what it would be, giving some options, and then, you know, having them make a decision around what that could be. So you're just putting a little bit more effort in, but that, I think, like you said, makes a difference.
Right. We need to put in a little more effort sometimes, especially right now.
Yeah,
that's definitely appropriate time to do that. So
yeah.
yeah, well, I don't have any more questions. Let me check here. I think we're good there. We've got some awesome information and a lot of great resources. If anybody has questions, you can always email us. You can email me, Kimberly@myquietcave.org, and I can reach out to Alex or try and answer it myself or get you the resources that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Alex.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here and taking time out of your busy day. It was good to chat with you.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
too.